Welcome to the Maxbet Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything gaming. I'm Landon Jones, here with Mike McKiskey. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Maxbet Podcast, Mr. Mike McKiskey. How are you, sir?
Man, if I was any better, I'd be you. Feels like.
Then you ain't getting no sleep. I can tell you that.
No, we're not sleeping, that's for sure. You, along in the vein of things they don't tell you when you start a company, you do it all.
Yeah.
Like, I'm laughing. I'm like, come over here because I'm like, I was just doing like general contractor, handyman work, right?
Into furniture design.
Yeah, and then the furniture stuff. And you're like, you're going out going, oh, we got to go haggle over how much these desks cost. Let's go yell about that, right? So you go do that, and it's like getting your office painted. It's like everything. You got to do it all.
So if you're wondering what the big guy's talking about right now, Maxbet has an official home.
We got a place.
We got a spot.
Little location action. Yeah, it's good, man. I'm pumped about it. Like, we're not moved in yet. So that's what we're talking about. We're like doing, painting and patching and all the stuff that you do when you take over a spot. But we blew some holes in walls and put some walls in other places, right? And so it's all good. But
and if you're listening and you're like, why do I care that Maxbet has a home? Well, here's why you should care. Because it's a place for everyone. And it's by the airport, like on Sunset Boulevard in Las Vegas, by all the gaming offices. So if you're out of town, you come travel, stop by our office because we're going to have slot machines, table games. It's going to be a place where you guys can come hang out.
Not for gambling. So anyone listening, you can't live gamble here.
No,
it's not a casino.
Free-to-play stuff.
Just a hangout kind of photo op thing so that you'll be able to hang. And I feel like that was important to note.
It is very important. Yeah, and we're going to have a green screen room so we could, if you guys want to come and talk about what your new company is launching or your new company or your company.
Or your current company.
What you're launching, we could jump on and do a podcast. We have a podcast room, a green screen room,
this
a hangout
is
room.
Like what? This is so to last.
Yeah, second to last podcast from my house.
And second from your house, right? New studio coming soon.
Yeah.
So after the holidays, we'll be back. We'll be up in action, and we'll be hanging.
Pretty excited.
And even if you don't want to do all the other stuff, even if you don't want to come play table games or, look at some felts or spin old school slot machine games, and you just want to come hang. It's going to be a fun spot. We got some extra space. We made a little bigger than we probably needed because we wanted our friends to come hang out and chat. But what we do say, right, I think one of the rules we're going to have is you come by.
Yep.
We're making content with you. We're going to do we're going to take a picture with you. We're going to do a video. We will do something.
Yeah.
We're going to be content focused in 2022. So
that's the plan.
And you don't need to be a CEO. You just be anybody. Just come on by. We'll hang out. We'll do some stuff.
Anybody.
Yeah, we're in.
Literally.
We're not too,
come hang out. We want to get to know you. We want to chat with you.
That's been the best part of the pod is just getting to know people. And then I laugh because I don't feel that important, right? Generally, like I'm just walking through my day, like just going, hey, I'm going to go buy some desks, whatever. And then people will address me as if I'm important. It always throws me off. Like people online will say like, hey, Mr. Mike, or hey, Mike, sir, right? And it's like, we love the podcast. I know I'm just a lowly slot technician manager. And I'm like, no, man, that's an important job. Like you could email me and talk to me and whatever you want to do. So like, don't be shy, I guess is our point. And, but let us know and
do you think people address you like that because of your sheer size?
It's possible. Yeah. But I think that's more when it's in person. Like if I walk in a room, people go, oh, hey, big guy, what are we doing? Right? Like that makes sense. Like you definitely see that shift in people. But I feel like online, like why would you have any sense of intimidation for me? Like I'm just a person with a LinkedIn account. That's always
people's general, like when they meet us both together, they're like, well, you're a lot bigger and you're a lot smaller. I'm like, okay, high five.
It's like, thanks. Well, I laugh because who was it? Was it Cravens who says, you're dreamier in real life and I'm bigger in real life, which I'm like, I don't mind.
He calls us Beauty and the Beast.
That works for me.
Yeah.
I get the Beast is still, I know everyone
You're beast mode.
So, I like it. Yeah. I read the books. I guess the Beauty reads the books in that too. So.
Yeah. Books on tape still. So I'm not ashamed of that. I know.
Fall in love with me, Len, and save me from this ugly form.
What was, Beauty and the Beast. Thanks for tuning in today. We have an exciting episode for you all. we have Mr. Martin Storm.
Mr. Martin Storm.
From BMM.
First of 2 Martins, by the way. We're closing out 2021 with Martin and Martin.
Yep. And Martin Storm is from Australia. So
he's an Aussie.
It's just like, we might as well move this deal to Australia.
Well, whenever they open that place back up, we got to go.
That
might
place,
be a while.
That continent.
I was going to curse. The country. The country continent. It's all good. Oceania.
Big deal.
So he's here. He's coming in a few minutes, but so that's gonna be a blast. But I cannot wait to just try to piece this together.
Yep.
Because you talk to him or you hear about him and you go, this guy's a rock star.
Yeah.
He's got stories of like F1 racing and rock and roll, and you're going, wow, I can't wait to meet the guy. And you go, but he runs a compliance company. That's weird, right? Like, how does
Wouldn't
that
be your first thought?
No,
right?
not at all. You would think like some guy with a pocket square and like, whatever, like an accountant's, bullshit suit is going to be running a compliance firm. But
by the way,
not that.
We don't get to have these conversations without compliance. Gaming doesn't exist.
I'm not saying compliance isn't important.
No, yeah.
I'm just saying it doesn't normally seem like the thing you'd go, Mick Jagger's running that. Right? You go, no. Mick Jagger's running the game dev studio, right? Like Scotty Olive's crew should be the fun, like rock and roll guys, and then the compliancers, like the lawyers, right? The black shoes and
every person that's in compliance listening to this right now is second guessing what their career choice was. They're like,
either that or they're just going, we will never come to your office and hang out, you jerk.
You're still welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome to come.
Tell me something fun.
Something fun. How fun you want it to be?
The funnest. The most fun ever.
The most fun ever. So this is weird, but I've been really pumped on my Christmas lights display this year. Like, I know that's a really weird definition of fun because I haven't been able. It's cold, man. So like all the fun I feel like you do out here is outdoor related.
Yeah.
Not fun. Might have broke my hand rollerblading. So that's exciting.
That makes sense. You're a big guy, big fall.
Yeah.
But question for you.
Yeah.
Actually, more of a statement. If I was as tall and as big of a man as you, I would put up a lot of Christmas decorations too, because I wouldn't have to use a ladder. I'd just go around my house stringing things.
So pro tip, if you ever get in that scenario, the little hooks. So the first year is a pain in the butt because you got to go and like put all the little hooks in. But then you just leave the hooks, take the lights down, and then I hung lights in 25 minutes.
Oh, nice.
And then the only reason it took 25 instead of 15 was because one of the strands was tangled, and it took me 10 minutes to untangle. But other than that, good.
So if you're wondering,
kids every day.
That's the hook.
Thanks, Timbaland.
Way to go. I don't know. I just saw it, so I took it.
That's good. We're punny. That's what we do. So what's up with Acres lately? You talk to them? Game changing?
I haven't had a conversation with them, but no? I mean, I'm excited to see what they're working.
They're still crushing
on.
That's all you hear. Well, it's just everywhere you turn.
Yeah.
Cashless this and what is it? Cashless and cardless and mobile based and live play and real time. And you have companies that do individual things. And Acres is like, we do it all.
Yeah.
We check all of them out, man. So, if you haven't, I'm sure you've probably heard us say it before, but if you haven't, check out acresmanufacturing.com. Their foundation system is exactly that. It's the foundation for everything that you're trying to build in kind of the digital mobile sense. So
I'm excited to see what they're working on.
There's always
for
something
their in-game
new.
betting, for their, the player card stuff, kind of merging that with what Martin, not this Martin, but Martin we're talking to next week, how they can kind of merge all that. So if you're listening now, make sure you tune into next week's episode because we're talking about sports betting and the program that Martin's created is pretty wild.
Starting to just sit on the peripheral of the industry and talk to all these people and go, oh man, when you plug into that, that's going to be cool. Or when
you know Bob?
Get to know
you
him.
really should talk to Bob.
Like, well, that's one of the more fun things. So I laugh because I always feel so awkward doing intros.
Yeah.
Not intros to the podcast, but intros to other people. Because like you'll interview, let's say Martin.
Yeah.
And then inevitably someone will listen that I know and they'll text me and go, hey, can you introduce me to Martin? And I'm like, yeah, I have no problem doing that. I always feel so awkward on what to say, right? So I always feel like I'm like, all right, shout out. And then you watch Ted Lasso?
I do watch Ted Lasso, yes.
Ted Lasso has this great line. So now I just use that and I go, congrats. You both just met a cool person. And I just drop the mic and walk the hell away because I'm like, I don't know what to say anymore. I'm going to go.
I identify a lot with Ted, actually. He's very nice. Like, hey, sorry. King of that. Yes, exactly. But what you didn't bring up.
Oh, was I supposed to?
Well, I mean.
You bring it up. I'll comment.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I was just thinking like being like, I got shot at. We didn't talk about that.
Oh, that's right. Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to bring it up. So Landon took a bullet His car, I guess, blocked it for him. But
yeah, I was driving to get tacos.
little taco craving.
Just on a Sunday night. No big deal. 7:30 at night, driving on Charleston Boulevard. Heard a gunshot. Car goes bink. I go, did someone just hit me or did I get shot at? Pulled into the Wendy's parking lot, and sure enough, there's a bullet hole through my rim, into my tire, into my wheel well. Someone shot at my car.
Totally.
So now I have that. To talk about
that story.
Does that make me kind of like gang-worthy? Am I kind of like a gangster now?
I hope not, because you don't want to deal with that, man.
Okay.
But I would say that is wild.
Pretty
right?
crazy.
So you texted me that when it happened. You're like, dude, I just got shot. I'm like, what? Like, are you okay? And I'm like in my car. And then you send me the picture, and I'm going, oh, that sucks. And then your car is like, the wheels are kind of specialty, so you couldn't change it right away. And then the most terrifying and yet oddly like interesting part of the whole story to me is tow truck guy shows up to kind of help you deal with the car.
Like, this happens all the time.
He goes, this happens all the time. It's like, what? Like, what do you mean this? People just get their cars shot at like one bullet at a time? Like, no big deal.
Here's the best part of this whole story. So the next day, because this was before Thanksgiving, I was flying to Nashville, and my flight was super early, 5, 6 in the morning or something, right? And so this happened at night, and it took a while to kind of deal with the tow truck, and I didn't even get out of the Wendy's parking lot till like 11:30 at night. But I called my mom, because what would you do if your car got shot? Well, I just wanted to let her know, like, hey, this happened. Mom, I'm okay, but I don't know if I'm going to be on my flight tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And so I think by the time I called her, it was 8 o'clock our time.
So it's like a little later there.
It was like 9:50 in Nashville, is where they live. I call her. I'm like, hey, Mom, I don't know if I'm going to make the flight tomorrow morning, but I'll be on the next. She's like, what happened? I was like, well, I just got shot at. And she's like, why are you, it's 9:50 at night. And I go, oh my gosh, sorry for waking you up and disturbing you.
Jules can't be bothered. Once her eyes close, that's the end of that. She's like,
done.
Do not call me with your gunshot stories.
But I sent it to like a group chat in my family, and then everybody the next one was like, what happened? Then my mom was like, wait, you got shot? I was like, yeah, hey.
Talk to the phone. You told me to get out of here and toughen up.
Stop waking you up. But
anyways, you know what's hard about that?
You know
she feels bad for that in context.
Dude, it's tough down here in the streets. Downtown's scary, bro.
Why do you think I leave before it gets dark?
Before the street
before
lights
I get the Taco Bullet Bandit out there, I'm just gonna get home to my nice Christmas lights and little softer side of life.
Your gated community.
Exactly.
I'm out here in the hood, but
you and Blue just roughing it.
All right. Well, should we jump into the?
We should get to Martin. And if you're still with us before the interview, like and subscribe. What always helps out. Throw us a thumbs up, and you'll get extra content, and you'll get it extra fast. So, with that, let's storm it.
Boom.
Today's episode is sponsored by Acres Manufacturing. We've talked about them a ton.
I
don't even need to say it anymore. Chances are good if you're looking for it. They have it built. acresmanufacturing.com. Go make some money. Well, Martin, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. Appreciate you coming by.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, welcome. I heard you just got in from a flight from Australia.
I did. I bounced across the top of Hawaii. There's obviously some weather going on there.
Oh, yeah.
And landed in LA on Sunday night and got here late Sunday night and had 3 good days. So this is day number 4.
Yeah, that's fun. Did you were you at the game last night? I know I heard you're a Golden Knights fan. I don't know if you went and checked that comeback.
I am. A couple of years ago, my guys came to me and said we should buy 4 tickets at the hockey, and I thought, I'm an Australian. Hockey's crap,
Right.
And I said to them, how much are they? And they told me. I said, you're out of your mind. I said, I know it's going to happen. You guys are going to go 3 weeks in a row, and then there'll be empty seats for the rest of the season. Best investment I ever made.
Yeah, right.
We have got the hockey full every game at home.
Yeah,
I love it. It's the best game I've ever seen live.
Yeah.
And I played professional volleyball.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah,
it's a good game, volleyball, at an indoor level. It's a really exciting game. Hockey kills it. Hockey's fantastic. So I didn't watch the game last night, but our guys were there with clients and just kind of picked up on TV later in the night.
We were watching at home, but I was just laughing. I didn't know if it was like, hey, boss comes to town. No, I'm going. I'll be there, sitting in the seats, getting it done. But
do you guys go?
I've been to a few.
Yeah.
He's a big hockey fan.
I go all the time. Yeah, so it's fun. I don't have season tickets, but I've been fortunate to get some invites and getting out. So it's fun to go.
It was interesting in the first year because I paid for the tickets and I was thinking, boy, they're expensive for a medium-sized business. And we made the finals. And, of course, you have to buy extra tickets for the finals. And we kept winning the finals until we got to the Stanley Cup final. And it was like another 20 grand to get to, the final. And I was thinking, goodness me, I hope this runs out
Better
eventually.
win the whole thing here, boys. You're costing me a little money with no cup there, but we'll get it.
Yeah, anyway, it was pretty exciting. They're a great team, and it's amazing how the city's adopted them.
It is amazing to see what Las Vegas has done with their professional sports teams. And it's cool to see people coming in because everybody wants to go to the game. A lot of people from different states and their teams are playing. And it's really neat. I'm excited to see the Raiders kind of blossom like the Knights did. But
to start winning. But then, the stadium's full, win more and you get more energy. But all right. So you mentioned you played professional volleyball. So as a sport, and it sounds like I was hearing maybe in Australia and then different parts of Asia. Was it like this? I mean, not obviously to the same level, maybe 20,000 people, but was it a pretty popular sport where people kind of pack in and go nuts? Or
yeah, I've played in some big tournaments. I played in front of 30,000 people in Paris and places like that. So I've played in some big indoor venues, a lot like your basketball venues.
Yeah, sure.
But look, in Australia, it's not that big a sport. Yeah. It was my last choice. I went to
volleyball.
It's like, pick this up. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I had nothing else better to do. So I was a very keen footballer as a kid.
Yeah.
And you
football
know,
is
as
when
in
you
Aussie
say,
rules.
I was gonna say Aussie rules, right?
Yeah.
Not US. Yeah.
And I was almost as tall as I am now at 13. So so I had some natural
You were the
advantages.
guy, absolutely.
And I was pretty good, and I got some opportunities. I won some things, and it was looking really good. But the other thing that I was doing was I used to run laps of the oval for training to make myself fitter. And I ended up becoming quite a good runner, and then I got this scholarship to private school
for
middle distance running, and I had to give up footy. So I started running, and that was fantastic, and that was the thing I loved the most. Running was the best. If you've ever had the chance to do some running and be out there on your own and just enjoy it, it's great. It's great space to be in. But anyway, I hurt myself, and I spoke to my dad, and he said, well, listen, you can play volleyball pretty well. I'd learned to play as a child with my parents. And he said, why don't you go and play for one of the teams? So I did. And then a couple of years later, I was playing in the state team. And a couple of years later, I was playing in the national team. So that's how I got into volleyball. So it was kind of, it was like.
So did you play in the Olympics then when you said the national team?
At that point, we never qualified.
Oh, I see. You would have had you made that. That was the natural progression. Yeah.
Australia first qualified for the Olympic Games when Australia had the Olympic Games. So you know how the host city gets into every sport?
Oh, is that how it works? Yeah.
So in Sydney in 2000, the Australian team got into the Olympics for the first time. It's played in successive Olympics since.
Yeah.
But I went and played overseas in the early 80s, and no one had ever done that before, and played in South Korea and Japan and did some things, as a 19, 20-year-old. So that was a great experience, when you're young and you're away from your mum and dad.
Yeah, right.
And you're living in a country where the culture's so different. Japan and South Korea couldn't be more different to Australia. And I had to, I lived in a room with 4 guys, and I slept on a camp stretcher for a year. And
probably some of the best days of your life too.
Unbelievable. And we trained 40 hours a week, so 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And in winter in South Korea was minus 30, and we had to run 10 Ks every morning in the snow, and it was just it was brutal.
Well, you're ready for that. You're a middle distance guy. You're like, it's snowing, but you're probably clipping those 10 Ks like that's not even there. Right?
No, you know what you did? You never run ahead. You always ran in the group. It was warmer if you were all together. So you
like
ran in
a body heat survival
thing. And you know what was incredible? There was guys who were in the Taekwondo team for the for the university that I was where we were training, and they were stripped into shorts. It's minus 30, and they're doing push-ups in the snow.
This is the Taekwondo. Just building toughness.
I know. Can you imagine what we complain about? And this is just like a normal day for their university
just in boxer
teams.
Briefs, racking push-ups in the snow.
And we thought they went
my life's pretty easy.
Well, they were. Actually,
they are nuts. Yeah, certifiable. For sure.
So that's how the volleyball thing happened. And I didn't really start working seriously until I was 26. So that's when I gave up volleyball and moved on.
So what was the first thing after that? So you give up this crazy, not crazy, but fun life that most people don't get to have, where you're traveling around, professional sports, 4 guys in a room, but then You go, all right, now I got to get a quote unquote real job. What was that first, what was next from there?
Well, I missed out on university because I was playing volleyball.
Sure.
And it was an easy choice. Do you want to go to school and study, or do you want to travel the world and play volleyball?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, right? Absolutely.
But I obviously didn't have a tertiary education. So when I was playing volleyball, I got into reading Time magazine.
Okay.
And then I started reading other magazines, Business Magazine, The Economist, or the equivalent of that back in those days. And I was really interested in the world and politics and economics and business and management. And I thought, and the computer industry. So I saw technology emerging in the early 80s. I mean, IBM dominated the world back then.
Sure, that was it.
But the IBM PC was just coming out. That's when I'm talking, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft didn't exist. So that's when I'm talking, right? So in those days, and so I'm reading all this stuff, and when I went back to Australia and I thought, well, I've got to get a job. What am I going to do? I thought, there's no point mucking around here. I've got to get myself a job in the technology industry.
Yeah.
That's the future.
Yeah.
And I've got to get a sales job because that's what earns the most.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, and so then, of course, every job interview I went to for every good company said, have you got a tertiary degree?
No, but I can spike a volleyball if you've never seen, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I thought, well, if you can't get in the front door, you've got to find a side door. So I kind of worked away through a couple of crappy little jobs, but each time I got them, as soon as I got them, I went and interviewed for the next job. Eventually I ended up at one of the big IT companies. And I went on this sales training program, and I finished in late 86, and I went on territory as a sales guy in 87. So, and then it went pretty well for me. And not because I'm super smart or anything, but when you come from my background of physical training and stuff, it's easy to be disciplined. It's easy to work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And if you figure everybody else is working 5, it doesn't take you long to get ahead.
Yeah.
So I had a good sales career there. I ended up at Oracle. Now,
it's a good company.
Yeah, Oracle was. This is 1991 now, and Oracle was still early days.
Yeah.
I think the year that I joined them, the year before, they'd done their first $1 billion year, but they were going broke on cash flow. So they brought in a guy named Jeff Henley, and he fixed everything up, and he turned out to be a genius. And I had a couple of good years at Oracle, a few. And in the late 90s, I was sitting in an office. A guy came into my office and said, I want to buy some software. And we started talking, and I quit my job and joined him. And we built a technology set for online securities trading.
Yeah.
And then we listed the company on the stock exchange. And this is 1999.
Yeah.
And we made some decent money over the next couple of years before the market crashed.
Yeah, right.
What was that like, going from a sales position to starting your own business? So having a paycheck and then going to start your own company.
So guys, let me tell you how it happens.
We're doing it now. So
exactly.
It's a slanted question there.
Well, I tell you, it wasn't the easiest experience, and I'm sure yours isn't going to be either. That's the point of it.
Yeah.
There's no greatness without suffering. So at the time that I was doing that, I was having a child with my wife.
Yep.
And we were renovating a house, and I didn't have enough money to pay the contractors. So every month I kept thinking, we're going to make some money this month. This month we'll make money, and then I'm going to take that money and pay the guys, and I'll worry about the tax later.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, the good news is I didn't have a tax problem.
Yeah, right. You got a contracting problem that's like, hey.
But I had a lot of guys standing at the front door going, when did you say you were going to pay me? So that went for a year, and that was horrendous. It was catastrophic. But anyway, we managed to do some good things. We managed to get paid. I managed to keep the guys going and get them paid. And then I had to worry about the tax problem later. So the first, the first year or two was horrendous. But but that's how it is, guys. Good luck to you. Any business that can get out there, start from scratch and go gangbusters from day one. Good on you.
I think there's a lot to be said for putting yourself in a stressful position where you're a little bit stressed for cash while you're starting a business, right? It brings out a new energy in yourself that helps you accomplish tasks that you didn't think you could accomplish.
Certainly
right?
creativity.
Yeah.
You start learning what you can do for $1 or what you can do, right? Whereas before you're like, I don't know, $10 sounds good. You're like, $10, that should cost $1.40, right?
Yeah.
You figure, like, you just can learn more. And
well, I can remember, I'll tell you one story. It's that thing about intensity too. When you're You hear those stories about mothers who lift up the back of a car to get their child out, right?
Yeah.
Well, no woman can lift up the back of a car until her child's trapped underneath it, right? So there's a certain intensity that comes from desperation or survival or whatever it might be. It's a human condition thing. And there are times along the way in the first 2 years of our business that I felt that.
Yeah.
When there was a particular plasterer who used to come to my front door, and he was only about 5'7", but his arms were 4 feet long, and from carrying plasterboard, and he was seriously intimidating, this dude.
Yeah.
And he'd always ask for his money, and I couldn't pay him, right? And I you bullshit a little bit for a while, and then after a while you just got to fess up and say, look, I'm really sorry, but there ain't no money. I'll pay you as soon as I get some. So in the context of all of that, I'm now at the point where we're trying to raise money for the company that we've built.
Yeah.
And we had one of the biggest investors in Australia come in and see us, him and his brother. And I won't name them because that would be inappropriate.
Yeah.
But they're brilliant and fantastic, these guys. And we're looking for $300,000. And I'm there with my partner, the guy who walked into my office, and I joined him. And we're pitching for some $300,000. And this $300,000 is important because I've still got to pay the plasterer, right?
Yeah.
And that
you got
guy,
Johnny Longarms waiting for you in the parking lot. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there shitting myself, right? And these guys have come in, but I've just had a baby with my wife.
Sure.
Yeah.
And every night I would go home after 12, 13, 14 hours and put the baby to bed. And these guys have turned up late. And so my partner and I are pitching away, and I'm looking at my watch thinking, that's it. I said, excuse me, guys, I've got to go. And my partner's just looked at me like, what are you doing? And the guy who was the senior guy, who's now a billionaire and very successful in Australia, he looked at me and said, what are you doing now? I said, I've just had a baby. And I'm going home to put the baby to bed. And when I put the baby to bed, then I'll come back. Can you wait half an hour? And he just looked at me and said, I'll wait 2 hours. And
wow.
I came back in about 45 minutes. Half an hour later, we had the money.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And let me tell you something. The only thing that got us the money was putting my little daughter to bed that night.
That's wild. Yeah.
So in other words, he just rung a chord with him. It struck a chord, and he just looked at me and thought, I trust that guy.
Yeah.
That's what, did it end up being a good investment for him?
Yeah, look, they put in.
They got a new kitchen,
and they made 4 times their money in a year. I reckon they'd be happy with that.
Everybody seems like a winner.
Yeah.
Oh, so a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah, that was
crazy.
a wild story.
Yeah, and it sounds like all the contractors got paid. Your kneecaps are fine.
That's
like everything's good. But okay, so fun stuff, right? You're traveling around playing pro sports. You're doing some of these deals. Why compliance? Like, so then you go and launch BMM, which to me, just talking to you, I'm like, you seem like a fun guy to hang out with. Like, what makes you think compliance? Because at least outside, compliance is a very boring area of the business.
Yeah,
Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. But I'm like, why? How did BMM come to be?
Well, nobody consciously chooses compliance.
So that's what I'm wondering. Like, what? So what'd you unconsciously do or subconsciously do?
I'll tell you how it really happened. Is that when the market crashed, we merged our company, our public company, with another company under some duress, and I didn't need to work anymore for a bit. Yep. So I went home and I thought I'll just be a dad for a while.
Sure.
And after 12 months, my wife said to me, what are your thoughts about the future? I said, would you like to have another baby? She said, no, not that. What are you intending to do about going to work?
Getting out of my face. Yeah.
I said, well, I don't need to go to work. We've got enough money to last a while. She said, no, you're in my office. You need to get out of my office. Yeah. I said, what do you mean office? She said, the house. I said, I bought the house. You moved into the house. I renovated the house. It's my house. She said, I'm your wife. It's my house. Get out.
That's in the vows.
So on the back of that, I rang one of my best friends and said, listen, I need a job for 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, she'll be begging me to come home because I'm the cook and a pretty good cook.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
She's going to miss me, the baby. Everyone's going to miss me. Give me a job for 3 weeks. I'll work for free.
Sure.
So he gives me this consulting job with a major gambling company in Sydney. So every Tuesday morning I fly up to Sydney, work 3 days, come back Thursday night, get paid for it. I got paid in the end. And I did that for 3 weeks. And I went to my wife and I said, listen, are you thinking maybe I can come back? And she said, this is great.
Best arrangement you could have given me.
This is awesome. You're away for 3 days and I get to see her for a few days a week. And I went, oh, right, okay. So I ended up working there for a year as a consultant. And guess who I bumped into? The guys who owned BMM.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Whoa.
And that's how it happened. It was early 2002. And I didn't even know what a BMM was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So one of them I became quite friendly with, and we'd have a drink a couple of nights a week in Sydney with a little gang that was hanging out consulting together. And he said, look, we've got a couple of challenges around getting paid, and I know you've got a business background. Are you any good at collecting cash or giving us some tips on how we get our money? And I said, sure, no problems. And, I know all about collecting money because I had the plasterer at my front door.
I was going to say, did you hire Johnny Longarms to come in?
Johnny Longarms, he had the instruction booklet, how to get money from people.
He wrote it.
Yeah, so I said to him, sure. So I gave him a hand, and people were just not paying, and so we sorted that out. And he said, look, we're thinking about selling the business. They were both in their late 50s. They wanted to retire. Do you think that maybe you could help us sell it? And I said, you can go to a professional company. They do that
There's
stuff.
people that do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, and they begged me and begged, and I said, well, not begged me, but they asked me, and I said, okay. And we did a couple of meetings, and they had said, what do you think? Can we sell it? And I said, no, those tire kickers. They're not going to buy anything from you. They're just hoping you might give it to them.
Yeah.
And they went, oh. And then they came back to me and said, would you be interested? And I said, are you kidding? I'm just trying to get home to Melbourne. My wife, she's going to accept me sooner or later.
Eventually, she wants me back.
I'm not intending to do anything here. So anyway, I went back to my wife and said, what do you think? She said, it's a great idea. You should do this. So anyway, I kind of, through a couple of steps, became the CEO of BMM in September 2002. And I had a contract that said I could buy the company if I wanted to. And we'd already worked out the formula because I was uncommitted.
Yeah.
I was committed to working hard. I was just uncommitted to buying it.
To owning, yeah.
And look, I ended up buying it in 2005. I bought most of the equity, and then I mopped up the minority shareholding a couple of years later. And I started this journey in late 2002 to build this business. And in those days, BMM was one person in Sydney and a dozen or so people in Melbourne. That was it.
Yep.
And I thought, well, this could be fun. Maybe I could do the international thing. And so that as it goes, I ended up in the gambling industry, thinking I was going to get home after 3 weeks. I thought I was retired.
He still wants to go home.
And so I kind of thought, well, what can we do here? And so that started the journey of building a business from 2003 onwards up until today, which now operates in 470 gaming jurisdictions. In those days, we had 7 in the early days when I got there, and it's 470 now. And a lot of employees in 14 locations around the world, and all the challenges of all of that, which you guys are going to find out about because you'll clearly be successful and you'll do all sorts of weird and crazy and wonderful things.
Doing that now. So this is, I'm curious. So you went from 12 employees to how many employees do you have today? And that's not
nearly 500.
Yeah, around 500. Yeah.
That is wild.
Slightly more.
Did you ever think in your wildest dreams that it would be as successful as it is today back then? I mean, that's kind of hard to think about, but.
Yeah, look, I didn't understand the critical element of the business.
Right.
And no one does really. And there's no way you'd ever know it unless you were my competitor. And I think that, when I started the business, I thought I was going to go out there and build a business. And I thought, well, I can do this really quickly. I've got the right background for it. But you needed licenses.
Right.
Market access is the key to our business. So you might think what is the core competence of a gaming lab? And people say, well, certification testing. We test products. We certify them to individual requirements in gaming jurisdictions. We give the regulator and the manufacturer a letter and they can go sell that product.
That would have been my guess.
Simple.
Sure.
Yeah. That's not the important thing.
Right.
Even though it is, it's
important, but it's not number one.
Yeah, it's not the number one thing. If you're building this business and you want to compete in this business, the most strategic asset in the business, as distinct from the core competence, is market access. And as it turned out, we had full market access in Australia, as you would expect. There's only 7 jurisdictions if you count New Zealand, but there's 300 over here.
Yeah, right.
Including Canada.
So when you say market access, is that just basically saying like, hey, you can work with a Scientific Games or an AGS and say, yeah, we've certified that your software meets the standard? But market access would mean, but I still have to convince the state of California to accept that I'm a viable certifier, right? Is that what you mean by market access?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, every jurisdiction, gambling jurisdiction, has some form of accreditation, approval, or license for a test lab to provide the report. So if I do the test for AGS, but I can't provide the report to the regulator, why would AGS choose me?
Yeah, right.
I can't do the work for them really, because I can't give the report to the regulator, which is the critical element. And so if you go to California, there's over 60 tribes doing gambling. If you go to Oklahoma, which is the second biggest market, there's a lot there too. And, and if you get 59 out of 60, you can't do business.
Wow.
Because
I didn't know that.
Because Aristocrat, Scientific Games and IGT, when they give you the product to test it for California, they're expecting they can sell it into 60 markets that are gambling markets. And if you say to them, look, you can only do 53 because we haven't got the other 7, they're going to go, why did I test with you? I'm just going to go to the other guys and they can do all 60. So if you think about that logically, by extension, how would you compete against me coming into the market?
It honestly,
difficult.
It's super important. It kind of keeps all the bad actors out of the business, right? It's a stopping gap for people just coming in with a couple $1 million trying to create one machine. They have to go through all these processes, getting licensed through the states, getting licensed through BMM. It kind of protects our industry a little bit.
It's amazing, right? Yeah. It's an amazing barrier to entry for all external entrants. But here's the thing. You guys know the story of IGT and Aristocrat. The key to IGT's success 20, 30, 40 years ago was to make sure that Aristocrat couldn't compete with them.
Right.
If Aristocrat had a better product or a better service, then what would you do? You don't want to compete with them, so you make sure they can't compete with you. Yeah. And we went through the same process for the last 15 years, which is, you don't have to beat me by providing a better service. You just have to beat me by not letting me test. So
that's wild.
If you can't put the player in the game, the player can't beat you, right?
That's right. So if you lock the door to the field and I can't run out in the field and compete with you, then you must automatically win, surely.
Yeah, I'll win even if you're faster and stronger than me, right? It's kind of
a bad strategy.
Yeah. So good strategy, but go back to the original point of which is if there was 60 jurisdictions in a market and I can only do 59 and you can find one that you can block me in, I'm not on the field.
So it sounds like with the jurisdictions you're in now, like you've been able to overcome that. So now it's like to the point where you've said, hey, we've fought our battles for 15 or so years, but now you're in 60 out of 60 in that example.
Yeah, there are only 4 jurisdictions that we don't have, and it seems that most of the major manufacturers don't care that much.
Got it. Yeah.
So that's thank God for that. But that cost me $20 million as well to do it.
Yeah,
a couple of beans.
Could plaster a lot of houses with that money.
That buys a lot of kitchens.
It's okay. I borrowed it off Wendy.
So. Nice. Yeah, she's good. I didn't know.
That's why she follows me around.
She's like, "Where's my $20 million?"
$20 million. Yeah.
The plaster guy from 2021 is now Wendy.
Is it the same process for online games as it is for land-based, like your traditional land-based style games?
Yeah, you've got to be licensed for it, but it's easier.
To get an online game license. How are you guys combating some of these like pop-up illegal sites out of South Africa and they're using the crypto? It's kind of a crazy question, but they're popping up all over.
Yeah, but they're not getting regulated. They're not going into regulated markets. They're operating in that grey market or black market environment. And look, this is one of the biggest challenges we face going forward because just think about it. I've spent nearly 20 years trying to get licensed in the sort of vanilla land-based gaming market with gaming regulators who spend most of their life trying to keep people out.
Right.
And, regulating slot machines. Well, that game is almost over. If you just have a look at the sports betting market, you have a look at the online gaming market, you look at the technology integration, you look at media companies coming in, you look at the operational stuff, the combinations of social media, communities, technology, all of this stuff is just going to drive regulators mad because they're still struggling to do a slot machine. And we have gone so far past that. And
the floodgates have opened.
And here's the thing, they don't know how to regulate it because they don't even understand what it is. And we are super advanced in technology as a company, and we're struggling to keep up with everything that's going on. Yeah. You know, when you're going to have people gambling in the metaverse, well, you know, how do you license a meme?
We're trying to figure that out actually.
So it's really going to be exceptionally challenging for the industry, the traditional industry, and gaming regulators going forward. They're just not funded to do. It's not that they're stupid. They're not. They're just not funded to deal with all these issues.
That's wild. Brings a whole new set of questions.
I'm not trying to chew on the whole metaverse.
We could have a whole 2 hours talking about this particular topic. This topic it rocks. It's so interesting. You got no idea.
Well, so how do you? So like part of what I was asking is like, what is next? And it sounds like what's next is, so the standards exist today for land-based. That's fairly cut and dry. You've made your way in to say, hey, we're reputable. We can certify games just like anybody else. So then is the next thing truly online and then this metaverse concept, or are there other innovations or things coming to the regulatory compliance, area in the near term?
Yeah, well, to the credit of the land-based companies, the traditional land-based companies, they're trying to build more and more engaging content, more entertainment into physical cabinets. And they've done, I think, a brilliant job. When you look at the products at G2E and you see what the majors, the top 10 customers are putting out on the floor, they're a lot of incredible product. But that's kind of riding the end of that first wave. There's a second wave building behind it. And we know, you're right, we do know how to regulate all of that, and we do know how to do technical standards and technical compliance, and we know how to certify that product, and all straightforward, basic stuff. But as you move into the new technology set and you look at how brilliant people are at creating digital universes rather than just physical products. So you've got online gaming. From an online gaming point of view, there's half as much work in certifying an online game as there is in a land-based game. An interesting thing, Australia does twice as much certification for a land-based game on a slot machine as the United States does. The United States does twice as much as South Africa does. Right, so you've got a lot of variability between markets in terms of requirements, and now you move to online. And the thing about the online market was that it didn't emerge in the United States or Australia. In fact, it's banned in Australia. Yeah. But it emerged out of businesses in Africa and Europe. Right? Yeah. And the whole idea of the online market was brilliant, right? You got a technology back end. You plop it somewhere, which is a tax haven. Yep. You put it on an island somewhere. Yep. And then you serve every player on earth from your island and you pay no tax. So that was the idea, right? And the games are entertaining. They may be not as good as a slot machine is today, but they're entertaining.
Some of them are getting
good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Well, especially when you think about where young players are coming from. A lot of them are coming from playing on a phone, and then so mobile. So the mobile's not as good as a slot machine, but the mobile compared to an online game, the online game's a step up. They like it. Yep. But the government, the gaming regulators and government tax jurisdictions killed that whole model. Basically, they said, if you want to serve online customers in our country, you need to set your servers up in our country. Yeah. So they've gone from one back end to 50 back ends if you're a successful company. You've got them placed in every country and you pay taxes based on the requirements there. So that sort of changed that model. And so that was the first stage. But from a certification point of view, again, super easy, no problem. And you've got companies that have come in now that don't do that much testing because they don't need to. Yeah. And now products are coming from Europe to America. Yeah. And America requires more testing. But some of these European companies, have got certified product. They don't want more testing.
That's the last
thing,
right?
Yeah, you don't want. Why would you want to go up a level when you've already got through in Europe, right? So there's some challenges around that. And there's companies in Europe who are test labs who have only been used to testing for European standards, and they don't know anything about American standards because they're not licensed in America. So off you go. So it's a whole thing. And when you get into the new technology, the gaming regulators are now trying to work out in America how to regulate online gaming. And how far have we moved?
They better figure it out quick.
That's nothing.
It's interesting. I think, what they try to do with server in jurisdiction and the geolocation, but you wonder, was that even necessary? Like when you think about it, that's like a good knee-jerk reaction. But I'm guessing just even what we're building, you can see, hey, there's the players out of the UK. So just because I set my thing in Malta doesn't mean I could still serve it from there.
Right.
Just tell you, here's all the money that I took out of UK, and maybe there's a bill I have to pay. But to have to mandate a whole new infrastructure, I mean, it becomes kind of cumbersome and a little bit anti-business.
Yeah, well, that's how they started. That was their way of controlling things,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
And look, in the future, it might be everything back end is in one place, and you work out how to pay taxes in every country properly, and it's all done. But look, this new stuff that's coming. I mean, the world has just changed so dramatically. Who would have thought that technology, sports betting technology, would end up partnering with a major casino operator in the United States, and then partner with a major media company who are going to live stream all that stuff on their TV channel, and all of a sudden you've got this vertical integration, and you've got massive M&A opportunities going on because of that vertical integration, and none of this is really that regulated. So it's kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it goes forward. And that's not even the cool stuff. That's just the boring stuff.
You wonder how far off we are where you take a physical cabinet and it literally has just the screen where you can do server-based gaming. So you take a cabinet that, say, Aristocrat built, one of these big, curved, beautiful cabinets, and you can go pick any game that you want to play on that cabinet. And that's coming. I mean,
like thin client. So
like thin client.
It doesn't matter. So you just sit down and you go, I have my chair.
And that's your TV screen, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Because think how much R&D it costs to build the cabinet with the game, to get it's so much wasted money.
I had a friend who was a CIO kind of guy, right? And he was CIO for a casino company. He probably made this comment almost 10 years ago. He said, that day will come.
Right.
He goes, I don't know if he knew when or the regulatory process, but he's just basically going, it makes no sense from a technology standpoint for that not to be the case.
100%.
Because the reason it's not is the regulatory.
Right.
They can control this chip is in this game, and we have some standards around it, right? But if you can get to, it's what IGT was trying to do at Ario with server-based.
Yeah. It's like the IP too, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to share. If I have an Aristocrat cabinet, you don't want to play an IGT game. Well, they won't allow you.
You can even do it though, but here's the thing: you could do it by manufacturer.
Yeah.
So you could say, like you're talking about an ARC or something, like you could say, well, that's still just going to be all of ATI or Aristocrat, right? And then you say, well, here's what the Cygames thin client setup looks like or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think you have to have just one Samsung thing that you switch the games into, but it makes sense, right?
Imagine that with
disrupts them
with like a leased version style game and then an own game. So if the customer picks a game that they bought, then they don't pay any fees on it. But if they go in and pick like a Lightning Link or a Dragon Link, then it switches the fees over to pay a percentage of. Yeah. It's pretty wild. Sorry, we kind of switched gears a little bit.
No, it's interesting. We're right on the precipice now.
Yeah.
We're right on the precipice from a technology point of view, from a social point of view, from a kind of all of these things are kind of thrusting together, and people are making things up that don't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
Landon does it all the time.
Wait.
I'll give, like people buy crypto, right?
Yeah.
Because they buy crypto and they're hoping the price will go up.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, right? That's what they're doing. It's an investment. Well, what happens if you don't want to buy crypto because you don't want to take the risk that the exchange falls over or that the whole crypto exchange belongs to one guy on a laptop?
You buy gold.
Who leaves it in Beijing and says it was stolen there and now nobody can find it. Yeah, that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Or the one that collapsed last week, all that sort of stuff. So if you don't want to take the risk of investing in crypto because you think maybe it's not regulated properly, then maybe you could just bet on it. So you could sit on your cell phone and go, let's take a bet. What is the price of crypto in 12 hours time, 15 hours time, 2 days time?
Yeah. So you're betting in dollars or something similar, but you're not, but you're betting on the crypto market.
Yeah, so, you're betting on it. So you've taken no risk in terms of buying crypto that might disappear tomorrow.
Right.
You've just made a bet. And they're going to do that on a cell phone, right?
Yeah.
So everything that you think about, and going back to your point about the Aristocrat machine and stuff, everything you think about is going to really ultimately go back to the user interface.
Yeah.
So right now we've got a generation of my children and other people's children who are growing up on a cell phone, and they see the whole world through that cell phone.
Yeah.
Even their computer is not the same thing anymore. Remember us? We thought the computer was the. I was writing COBOL in the mid 1970s on cards, and Fortran on cards, but computers didn't exist. When I got the first PC, we didn't know what to do with it. It was so exciting, right? Now
what do we do?
The PC is dead. The cell phone has taken over the world because our 17-year-olds and 15-year-olds and 12-year-olds, they see the world through a cell phone. Yeah. So when you think about that Aristocrat machine in the future, or the IGT machine or the AGS machine, you think I'm holding the machine in my hand. Yeah. Everything that they see the world through, whether it's a bet on crypto or whether it's Lightning Link or whether it's anything else, whether it's betting on horse racing or whether it's betting on footy, everything that you think of will be through that handheld device. Now, it may not look exactly like a phone in 10 years, but it will be through something handheld because portable. That's the a mobile portable user interface. And as long as the interface is very simple, it will just take over the world, dominate the world. So that's kind of where we're heading, how we get there from a gambling point of view and from a regulatory point of view, and that'll be the challenge. Yeah,
it'll be interesting. I mean, I'd love to see, and I don't know what the people, how they experience it in New Jersey and Philly where it's all legal, but you'd think, I mean, it's incremental money, right? So like when Jersey introduced it, it became, hey, there's online, but it didn't cannibalize. Everyone was afraid that it was going to just shift from land-based online. It seems like it's additive, and I like that. And, you know, to me, if you have an account-based system, like if we were at Caesars the other night, so if we're Caesars Sportsbook or Caesars whatever, like, and you're walking on the floor, there's a time where we're going to want to stand around and play the machine or roll the physical dice. Right. There's a time where we're just there for a conference and we're listening to somebody talk, and we're going, yeah, I'm just going to get a couple spins in while we're listening to so-and-so. Both can exist, and I think they'll coexist, right? So maybe it becomes thin client where it's all the same stuff and just a different form factor. But yeah, having it more and more on the go is absolutely going to happen.
Imagine a world where you're playing a game, a physical machine, and you have to go to a show or a dinner, and you just transfer it over to your cell phone, and then you're just playing the game as you're walking to the show with the same credits. And it's,
well, I mean, it exists.
It's going to happen.
Well, you know it can be done because how many times you do it on a Zoom? You're sitting in your office, you go, crap, I got to go. Like, and then you just go, transfer to my phone. Now I'm on the same Zoom, but I'm over here like that. Yeah, so it exists. It's just not in gaming.
Look,
we're on the precipice of this great stuff, and now you've got not just media companies joining in the fray. You've got sports associations like the NFL, the NHL. They're choosing teams. Yeah. You've got technology companies. You've got operators like Caesars and MGM. All of these participants are trying to find their way through what will be a solution that will serve as many customers as possible. And the total addressable market, as you rightly said, is actually bigger. You know, Vegas is going to break all records this year. Yeah. Well, you know, the reality is that we live in a world where there's sports betting, there's online gambling, there's land-based gambling, and it's just growing and growing and growing. And when you want to grow to the total addressable market, imagine when you've got ESPN and you've got the National Hockey League and you've got all these people. You know, you're not going to have a $50 billion market for this new stuff. You're going to have a $200 billion market for this new stuff.
I call that like the blockbuster effect, and these big corporations have to pivot quickly, right? You look at ESPN, they had the stronghold on the sports viewing market, we'll call it. Then you have Bally Network and Barstool that came in and took a huge percentage of their share in terms of viewership. Yeah. And then ESPN was like, oh shit, I thought we were the blockbuster on the block, and now we got to kind of reinvent ourselves with internet television and getting into the sports betting thing through ESPN, because people want it to be directly related. So if I'm getting my news from Barstool on my sports betting, I'm probably going to watch my sports through Barstool or through Bally Network or through another network that's not ESPN, because they're serving up, you know, their own messages. But pretty crazy.
Think about
Pivot quick.
Twitter's going to be in gambling.
Yeah.
Sports betting. Disney.
Yeah.
This is my opinion, so don't.
Sure.
No, you're good. Yeah.
I'm not telling you.
I haven't heard the Twitter news, but I'm going for it. Yeah.
Well, anybody who's got a community of users or a brand that builds a community of users, then that brand can be leveraged, that community can be leveraged. They're going to do it somewhere else. Why not do it with you? I don't expect that Disney's going to go out there and get licensed in 470 jurisdictions.
Right.
But they're going to partner with people, and they're going to use their brand, and they're going to,
It's okay, but if they want to, call Martin. He can help you out.
No. It just makes sense, right? Yeah, there's the brands. The brands are the power, right? So the technology in the end will be the least important thing, and it'll be in America at least, it'll be these incredible brands like ESPN, Disney. Twitter's got a community. Who else? I mean,
wasn't that Matt Wilson said? He's like, I'm not worried about my competitors. I'm worried about Amazon getting into gaming. Yeah, that's what scares me. Is when Amazon says, "Hey, we can make slot machines."
Just wake up and do that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, who is your competitor?
Well, more and more, you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. Or you know what you have done yesterday. Like you know who you were going to war with last week, but then you think, well, wait a minute. I don't know, and I'm not sitting in these boardrooms, but I wonder how many of the big manufacturers are going, all right, so when Twitter and Disney get in the game, what do we do? Sounds like it's potentially an actual threat.
Yeah.
And those guys have deep pockets and big reach and all the personal information you could ask for on people. They're well positioned to do it. How do you stop that? Right.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cue the Darth Vader. But it's just like, I don't know.
There's an old saying in management training that you don't send ducks to eagle school, and it doesn't matter what you do to the duck, it's always a duck.
Yeah, right.
It might be a good duck, but it'll never be an eagle. And we're in an industry now where it's eagles and ducks, and the eagles are going to win eventually. So the question is, who are going to be the eagles and who are going to be the ducks? But there's a lot. Look, there's a lot of acquisitions.
Mighty Duck.
Mighty Duck. Yeah, that's right. The hockey team.
So go back to hockey.
Yeah. So kind of interesting. It's a really interesting space, and if you think it's been interesting for some people in the last 20 years, I reckon the next 20 years is the bee's knees.
It's just compounding daily. The technology
and that's the thing that's interesting is like when you used to look back on 20, I mean, the next 20 are going to be crazy, but it's like every 2, it seems like it's another like, hey, then this changed. And then these markets came online. I mean, it's been not that long. And pandemics obviously once every 100 years or whatever, but it's like, how many more jurisdictions are online? How many more available options are for gambling? And it didn't take 20. It took basically 3 to 5.
Right.
And so in that next 20 years, you're going to have almost like distinct periods, I feel like, where you go, so this was the sports betting era. And from 2018 to 2023, when
everyone and their mom wanted a sports betting app.
And then people said, well, because what happened was they had no gaming revenue from a state jurisdictional perspective. They go, well, we could just, sports are okay, right? I mean, come on, man, we've been at the barbecue betting sports. How bad could it be? So they let that go. Yeah. And then in 2023, they're going to go, all right, so we spent all the sports money on infrastructure in schools or whatever else. What if we put slots in it? How bad could it be? We already have them land-based, right? And then they open that, and then you get the next era, right?
Desensitizing.
And then it just becomes one extra little piece at a time. And that's what people are building, right? Is this idea of one day you'll have it all.
In our world, we just got to try to understand the technology, talk to regulators about what's meant to happen to protect people, and go ahead and certify products appropriately. But it is exciting. It is an exciting time.
Yeah. Well, when you think of it this way, I can see why compliance would be fun. Like coming into it, I mean, so again, like,
compliance is kind of the cork to all this.
What I'm realizing is like, hey, if these guys are doing it, we can do it. Because what you need, the missing link has always been, who's going to explain it to the guy that's saying no? Because there's somebody that has an existing standard that says, well, we don't do betting on crypto futures. We don't do that. So how are you going to tell me we can do that? What's the new standard? What's the new proposal? And the Martin and his team of the world are the ones that have to go, all right, but I get it. Here's why you're nervous, but here's what we're going to be able to do, right? And it's a huge process. But if folks like BMM can do it, the world changes, right? The gambling world at least changes.
It's changing.
Yeah, and so from our point of view, no one consciously chooses compliance, but but the point about it is that the industry is exciting.
Yeah,
what's happening 100%. In the industry is exciting, and we're just a part of that. We're not, we're not Caesars.
Right. Yeah.
But we're a player, we're a participant, and we sit between the regulator, the operator, and the manufacturer or supplier or developer of software. And our job is to try to make it all work at some level from a regulatory compliance point of view, technical level. And so, we've got an education role, and we've got to understand it ourselves. And sometimes it's hard to understand it yourself because it's still evolving right in front of your eyes. It's like cooking.
Yeah, right.
It's not finished yet, and we don't know where it's going to go. And stuff is being, we think of the world as, some software developer is going to go out there and build a product.
Right.
Well, there's products being built today for the gambling industry. They're not being built by software developers. They're being built by people in a community who just decide to do stuff, and they do it really simply, and they create a little meme and a non-fungible token in the metaverse, and off we go, right? And and you sit there and go, well, how did that happen? What does that actually mean? And is anyone gambling on this? And is how do we protect the children? To save the children.
Even look at like 5 years ago when the industry was so concerned about the millennial gamblers, and then you had these companies coming in trying to make video games that you could gamble on to try to like capture that market, and they just completely blew all their cash doing that because it's happening kind of naturally. It's evolving naturally. The millennial generation and the Gen Zs and the Gen X, they're kind of like learning and giving new options for gaming, and it's just kind of happened naturally, right? Like online gaming is coming, sports betting. How do you merge it into brick and mortar? It just happens kind of naturally. Just let it take place and let it kind of morph.
Yeah, and you've got esports, you've got all sorts of things happening. So it's pretty amazing. We live in one paradigm, which is our traditional gaming market paradigm, and this new stuff's coming along, and that's just exploding in front of our eyes. As you say, 2 or 3 years of this will be like 30 years of the previous.
That's just it. Yeah, like the speed of innovation is unbelievable.
Yeah, true.
Bill Gates to, it's like from his invention to like whenever most people picked up Windows, let's call it in the 90s. I mean, even that was 10 years, right? He's mid-80s inventing it, but it wasn't really commonplace until early to mid-90s, years before that happened. Now, every iPhone gets updated and it's like, this is cool. And within a week, everybody has the new tech. Like the speed to get it out is wild now. So that's what I'm saying. It's very interesting to see. And then to see how those technologies, like we mentioned, just with switching a Zoom from one device to another, when is that a slot machine thing? We've tried it.
When did you guys discover video conferencing? Was it when the pandemic hit? Or would you already were you doing it?
I was using it before. So when I had a job where I was looking after selling mobile apps and internet, like free play social gaming, and a lot of those were on video calls. So we were doing GoToMeeting, I think was the brand we were using, probably 2011, 2012. But I don't know that I used it as like a verb until the pandemic hits. Oh, you want to Zoom? Let's go. Let's do a Zoom. Like it was a thing. Like it wasn't just a brand. It wasn't a meeting. It was a Zoom. But more and more.
When I got stuck in Australia, the penal settlement. The penal settlement kept me there for the last 20 months. And seriously, without video conferencing, I'm not sure that we could have continued to build and grow the business through these challenging times. And so it's amazing technology. It's so brilliantly simple and works so well. It's amazing.
It definitely conditioned all of us to be more used to it.
And then you take it for granted though, right? So like you laugh because you think about, again, when we were in school, right? Or whenever you want to go back further than that, the idea of looking into a screen and seeing you with no delay, with no lag, crystal clear, would be like magic. You'd be like, what? This is crazy that you're in Australia. We're talking like it's like this. And then, but now it's like, if it's even slightly delayed, you're like, this sucks. Like this whole throw the iPad away, get Zoom on the phone. Like we get used to it. And then you have your expectations reset super fast.
I remember in high school, AOL was coming out, like the dial up. And first time I bought something online was a paintball gun. I bought this paintball gun and I wanted to get imageries of the paintball gun. And so I literally had to download them. I came back an hour, 2 hours later to get the one image. I mean, just imagine how far we've come since then. It's
incredible.
It's incredible.
My favorite part of that is you're trying to download a picture from your buddy or whatever, and it goes, come back in 39 years. It's going to be 4 decades before this photo comes down. You're like, what? I'll just go to college. I'll figure it out.
Go to college. I'll be back.
Now, if that photo's not downloaded in 2 seconds, you're pissed.
Oh yeah,
it's just a different world.
Instantly.
I was having lunch with an executive of one of the major companies on Monday, and my grandson, who's 14 months old, he didn't contact me directly. My wife did, but my grandson appears on my screen and he's going, pa, pa, pa.
Yeah, right.
And I've got this exec next to me and he's sort of looking over my shoulder.
Like, what's up?
And I said, Sandra, look, I'm at lunch with, and
got a guy here.
And she goes, tell him your grandson's more important. And I went, oh, okay. And the executive said, she's right.
Yeah. It's like, hey, if you learned nothing, that's what got you the $300,000 deal, being a good family man.
And I'm looking at my grandson, and he's sitting on a back terrace by a river in Melbourne, and I'm seeing him as if he was standing next to me on a cell phone.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, my God. It's brilliant. We're so lucky. But think about our grandchildren and what technology they'll have. Incredible.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
3D, virtual,
Well, what's cool, the technology part of that's cool, but what I've noticed is a shift in culture, mindset maybe, right? So like if your grandson's dialing you in, or like I have 2 kids and when I was traveling a lot more, it was bedtime was 7:30 every night. So I'd be out at dinner with the customer going, look, you finish the appetizer, I'll be right back. And I go out and do a FaceTime, and every time they're like, dude, that's awesome. Or now, like if you're with somebody, they're, hey, it's your kids. Come on in with me. My kid's like, who's this? Is your friend? Like we're talking business. They're like, and then they'll say, well, are we doing a deal? Then it's almost like you could use it as a little sales. Are we? I don't know. Like, yeah, we are good. You know, but it's cool that you don't have such at least in the world, at least what I've been seeing is you don't have to be ashamed of, hey, I'm going to do a family call. Hey, time out on the business thing. I have real other people in my life that I want to tend to. So it's kind of nice to see everybody blending it all together and making it a little easier to live.
I think everybody understands that we work all day. Yeah. And if you're going to do a dinner event, that's another 3-4 hours, and it's a 16-hour day.
Yeah,
if you've got to break out for 5 minutes to say goodnight to your kids, I mean, goodness me.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people still get nervous.
FaceTime.
Yeah, but it's still a lot. Yeah, you don't do that. Don't even leave you alone already. But it's but still people get nervous. Say, hey, am I going to be okay if I stop and do a Zoom with my once back in your early story, if I run home for half an hour, put the kid down. I mean, now it's 20 minutes with the grandson. Like people used to be afraid of that. And I think more and more not so much, which is good. I think it's good for everybody's health mentally and family relations and everything. So
I think it gives us an opportunity to show that we care.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Caring is important in the world, and it's probably the key. It is the key cultural value within BMM. And so we were trying to understand who we were, and part of any organization, and it's going to be true for you two guys, is who are you two guys?
Yeah.
Because that's the culture of the organization. So in my case, it was who was Martin Storm,
right?
And trying to understand that, and because when things are good, they're good, and you can give the CEO a pat on the back, and when things are bad, you should also go to the CEO and punch him in the face. So the fish smells from the head is a great Asian saying, right? So if it's no good, then you know where it's coming from. Upstairs.
So he's the CEO. How do I punch him in the face? That's my big.
For you, step ladder probably help.
Okay, cool.
He's got a weight advantage as well.
Exactly. Yeah, a couple pounds.
That was to your advantage. So from that point of view, care was important for us.
Yeah.
We're going to build a business no matter what we do, and it's going to be challenging, and it's going to have all the tremendous things that happen and all the crappy things that happen.
Right.
That's life, right? But and business. But along the way, I just wanted to make sure that we treated people with respect and care. And that is our first value along the way in terms of who the company is. And we do this all the time. We'll fight for people. We'll take care of people. We'll make sure that, we treat them with respect. And we're not always perfect.
Right.
And I'm not everywhere, so maybe I'm perfect, but not everyone else. But
we'll go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with that. But Wendy's, she's shaking her head. But at the same time, we're trying to be that way. It's an aspiration. It's not always perfection, and we're trying to care. We care about our customers. We care about our staff. We care about our suppliers. We care about the world we live in.
Yep.
And if you start with that, then it's easy to make that call to your kids, and it's easy to explain it to your customer. And they'll see that as authentic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When I walked out of that meeting and I told you that, it was, if we'd failed in that meeting, I couldn't pay the guy with the extra long arms. That was an authentic thing for me to do. I meant it.
Yeah.
And the guy, he didn't even judge the business anymore. He was there because he knew the business was good and it was an opportunity, but he made a decision about what I was doing and why I was doing it. And so that, I think, permeates in life. And you run away from people who don't care.
Yep.
And you are attracted to people who do. Yeah. And I think that's part of what we're trying to create.
This is
fun.
One of my favorite podcasts. So thank you.
He says that's all the guests. I'm just kidding.
Oh, thank you. I actually do care.
Yeah.
Do you notice he only says it right at the very end?
Yeah. Well, he wants to make you earn it. Yeah.
It's over now.
Not quite. Right. Oh, so we are a gambling podcast, and we do talk about, just different gaming stories. And we were saying, asking you if you had any, and not to put the guy who regulates all the gaming, in a hard spot, but maybe you have some other stories that you've maybe witnessed of gaming.
I've got two. One is my father, and one is me.
Yeah.
And my father was I've kind of been anti-gambling as a personal thing.
Sure.
I don't go to casinos and gamble. I've never really wagered and things like that, mainly because my father was a serious gambling addict. And when I mean serious, I mean at a level that it's hard to understand. So I'll give you an example. So in Australia, we had currency called the pound before we had the dollar, and the dollar came in 1966. In 1954, in 1962, when I was 1 year old, I actually kind of remember this. I remember some images from it. My father and mother and I, sitting on my mother's lap, drove from Melbourne to Sydney, which in those days was like a 16-hour trip.
Yep.
I didn't know anything about this trip. Many years later, I asked my mother, I said, I do have this memory of being a little boy, like a baby, and seeing kangaroos and stuff. And she said, yeah, you were a year and a half old. We were going to Sydney on a trip. I said, oh, what trip was it? Yeah. She said, your father wanted to gamble on a horse. And I said, oh, how'd he go? And she never said a word to me for the next hour.
Not good, yeah.
And so here's the story. The story is he backed a horse to win called Love and Kisses. He backed it for £8,000.
Jeez.
Back then, that's a lot of money.
And
still a lot of money today.
And the salaries in those days were like £14 a week.
I love beans.
So £8,000 would have bought you a mansion in the best suburb in Melbourne, cash in those days. And of course, the horse ran a creditable fifth. So
wasn't even close. Yeah. Creditable fifth. Yeah.
So that gives you some perspective on what I'm talking about. So gambling was always a painful subject in my family. And when I was a little boy, when we were running out of money, this probably portends to my career, is that my mother used to drive me to a place in Melbourne called St Kilda, and she'd say, your father's upstairs playing cards somewhere. You find him and get some cash off him. We need some money for food. So I'd run up the stairs, look through the clubs, and couldn't find him. Then I'd go to the next club, and by the time I get to the third club, I'd always find my old man, and he'd be playing cards from Friday to Monday. Wow. And he made great money doing it, but you never saw the money because he'd gamble it on Monday at the track. Yeah. So I'd always go in there and ask him for money in front of his friends. And because he was proud, he didn't want to say no to his son. So he'd always give me more. I'd say, Dad, we need $20 for this week's food. And remember, in those days, our rent for the house was $18 a week. Yeah. So $20 was a reasonable amount of money. Yeah. If you're paying $600 rent a week now, this is equivalent of $600. Right. So I'd ask him for $20 and he'd always give me $40 to make himself look good in front of the boys. Yeah. And I'd go downstairs and give my mum $40 and she'd say, well done, son. And we'd leave. So they're my gambling stories. And I don't have any personal ones because they're just the horror of the past. Yeah. But I think gambling's great entertainment, and if you're a person who can enjoy it and make it entertainment and have great fun doing it, fantastic. Yep. And there's probably 1% of people who are not in that category, but there's 1% of people who are in every sort of category that causes trouble, right? So I don't have any issues with that, and we're really committed to responsible gambling. We've built a technology platform through another company that Wendy runs, and responsible gaming platform, and that's fantastic. So we're doing our bit to give something back to the industry in that area, as I think about my father every day when he gambles. So
that's that. Well, that's how it should be, right? Yeah. I mean, do it responsibly. Like you never want to. I don't use that example specifically, but you never want to be the one going, well, I got to hit this so the kids don't eat. Like that's too far. You're on you're over the line at that. Before the ball or the cards are even dealt, you're over the line, right? You want to be able to say,
it's like any
industry. Got a spare 100. We're good with the 100. If we lose it, no big deal. But if if it's going to jeopardize your life, that's great that there's programs. Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of different responsible gaming stuff out there.
A lot of it's education, and look, people who gamble irresponsibly in that sense, a very small percentage of people, they know what's going on. Yeah. They would stop if they could, right? So that's the challenge.
It is like it is one of those where it's like it's not as easy as like, hey, bud, just go home. It's like, well, if I thought about it, you think like of course I would have done that, but there's like a craving for it, and I don't want to say addiction, but maybe like it's something. It's more serious than just I thought I would hit black or red, right?
Yeah.
I have that addiction for music. rock music in particular. Yeah, I grew up in
Chasing
the sort
concert high.
just following bands and traveling the world. And if you walk into BMM, you're going to see some phenomenal posters.
I've heard that. So you're,
That's cool.
Is it just, are they all posters of shows you've seen or just
they're just bands playing live. So there's stuff from Jimi Hendrix and Zeppelin and Pearl Jam and Chris Cornell. And
do you have a favorite concert that you've seen? Or like a more memorable one at least?
Yeah, I've seen some fantastic stuff. I used to, I've always been this fairly independent young fella. That's probably, why I ended up going to business.
Right, yeah.
But I used to go, there's a place called the Maya Music Bowl in Melbourne, which is an outdoor venue. It's like the Hollywood Bowl, one of those things.
It sounds like that.
And I could never afford a ticket at 14. I never asked my parents for the money. So I used to go there and climb it was a botanical garden. So I used to take, when I was 14, I didn't, but at the time I was 17, I used to take a 6-pack of beers, climb up to the highest point of the front tree, and I'd watch the concert from the top of the tree, straight over the top of the crowd.
That's great.
And it was fantastic. So I've done a lot of that sort of stuff, but I've seen everybody you can kind of think of. So I reckon I went to the Pearl Jam 20 weekend in Wisconsin, the 20th anniversary weekend, and there was 2 nights in a row, and it was fantastic.
That's
and
amazing.
Cornell was there, and a whole bunch of great bands were there, and
that's amazing.
It was awesome.
Now all I can picture is when he said earlier he hasn't really changed his height since he was 13. Is he got like this 6'3", 13-year-old up in a tree watching concerts
some
on the
Tui news.
Yeah.
Hey, the worst thing, guys, is when you get to 17 and you drink those 6 cans like a man because you want to show how tough you are.
You gotta get down.
You gotta get down the tree.
Well, you got to get down safely, but you got to urinate, right? And you're sitting there thinking, what am I going to do now? And so you'd have to
all the people in the back are like, "Was it raining?"
Well, there are a lot of other people in the trees. I can see, like, I'm going to lose my branch, or is it just you up there? Like,
no, there will always be 2 or 3 of us, but you'd be sitting there thinking, "How am I going to get out of this?"
It'd be interesting.
Exactly. So you'd always have to pace yourself with a drink, otherwise you'd find yourself.
That's not a branch.
We feel like we're close to the old encore, so we can go ahead and fire down the rest of these beers. We're not going to run out of time.
So good stuff.
Oh, that's great.
Well, we appreciate you joining us on the podcast. And the last question that we always ask everybody is, if you could call someone out to be on the podcast, who would that be?
Yeah, who do you think we should talk to?
From an industry point of view?
Yeah.
Or anybody. We're open.
Do you know John Connolly from Interblock?
I do know John. I know John well. That's perfect.
That's the call out.
Challenge. Yeah, I worked for John for a while. So
did you?
Yeah, he's good. He's one of my mentors. Good dude.
John's a super bright, super smart, super interesting guy, and I'm pleased to think of him as one of my best friends. And
that's nice.
Look, I enjoy sitting there talking to him, so I'm sure you will too.
Well, and you talk about a guy with stories. John always got some stories.
Yeah, there you go, John. There's your call out, buddy.
We're doing it now.
Can I just tell you, John right now is in Hawaii. And
skiing, probably.
He's listening to it right now, like, yes, I'm the man.
Right,
windsurfing in 40 feet of
That's pretty
swell.
cool.
Yeah, right.
He's over there, and he's had 5 days of pretty ordinary weather.
Yeah.
And I think today the sun might be shining, so he's going to get a couple of days of sun. But he's a fantastic guy, and he's a brilliant businessman, and just a great friend. And look, I've learned a lot of stuff through John.
Yep.
John's been super helpful and teaching me things that I didn't know, and there's a lot that I don't know. So he's a tremendous person, and definitely worth a conversation with.
Perfect.
Well, we're doing it. JC, I'm coming for you, buddy.
Again, appreciate you for coming on the pod.
Thanks, guys.
This is fun.
Really appreciated your invitation, and great to meet you guys.
Likewise. Thanks. Right on.